I first met him when I was just 17 and he was 21, stationed at the Kaneohe Marine Corps Base in Hawaii. At the time, I was living in Mililani, Mauka, and to be honest, I was completely swept off my feet. He had the kind of presence that turned heads, broad, muscular shoulders, tattoos that made him look even tougher, and a smile that could disarm anyone. On top of that, he was sweet, charming, and had this romantic side that made me feel like I was the luckiest girl alive. After a while of dating, he told me he was getting out of the military and planned to move back to his hometown. I couldn't imagine life without him, so when I turned 20 and he was 24, I packed up and followed him. We decided to build a life together, starting with a small, intimate wedding that was just the two of us. Those early years were filled with love, but they weren't without issues, mostly when it came to how he treated other women. My husband is ridiculously good-looking, and I don't just say that because he's mine. He has this natural charisma, flirty, funny, and magnetic. I noticed it right from the start, but most of the time if I expressed concern and asked him to cut off contact with certain women, he would, or at least he told me he did. As time went on, though, our marriage grew rocky. I'm still deeply in love with him, but I can't say with confidence that he feels the same way about me anymore. He'll tell me he loves my body, loves me, but I can't help but feel he says that kind of thing to plenty of women. The stress has been eating me alive. Just today, I skipped work because I had multiple panic attacks before my shift and had to call in sick. Lately, I've been spiraling with anxiety, triggered every time I think about him and the way he talks to other women. The more I pay attention, the more red flags I see. Earlier today, he disappeared for 3 hours without a word. When I went into our bedroom, I noticed his computer was still on. At first, I ignored it, but when he came home and refused to tell me where he'd been, my mind wouldn't rest. Then a Snapchat notification popped up on his computer while he was downstairs switching laundry and feeding the dog. Out of pure desperation for answers, I clicked it. My stomach dropped. It was nudes from an old friend of his I recognized by name. The message read, "Nice seeing you today, baby X." My heart stopped. I immediately added her on Snapchat and asked if she knew my husband. She said he was just a friend and even asked if I was related to him, since my Snapchat shows my full name. When I told her I was his wife, everything unraveled. She apologized right away, explaining that he'd told her he was single, no girlfriend, no wife, nothing. She even admitted he wasn't wearing his ring when they were together. That broke me. He had lied to her, and he had lied to me. When I confronted him, I saw a side of him I had never seen before. He was furious, screaming, showing zero sympathy, and I felt scared of my own husband. After I cried, he tried to comfort me, but it only ended with him punching the wall over and over until his fist broke. He even ripped our bedroom door right off the hinges. I had no choice but to drive him to the hospital. We sat in that waiting room for hours, barely speaking, and even though things settled afterward, the memory of that night never really left me. For a while, life went back to normal, but cracks were already forming. Last year, I found out I was pregnant. That news seemed to change everything. He softened, became more attentive, and for the first time in a long time, I thought maybe fatherhood would ground him. Together, we prepared for the baby, and when our son was born, we were overwhelmed with joy. For a short time, it felt like we had finally turned a corner, that the struggles and heartbreak from before were behind us. Becoming parents bonded us. Sleepless nights, shared laughter, and the constant teamwork of raising a newborn created a closeness I thought would carry us through anything. His commitment to our little family seemed stronger than ever, and I believed we had built something that could weather any storm. But life has a way of revealing the truth. Slowly, the cracks returned. His late nights, his secretive behavior, that emotional distance creeping back in, it all started again. I told myself it was just the stress of raising a baby, the exhaustion, the pressure of being new parents. I wanted to believe that's all it was. Then, last month, he asked me to use his phone to open his bank app. I've used his phone plenty of times before to open the bank app, but this time something odd caught my eye. As I was scrolling, I noticed a new app one didn't remember seeing before. It looked like just a regular calculator, which struck me as strange since iPhones already come with a built-in one. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I kept my mouth shut and made a mental note of the icon so I could check it out later. That night, after we went to bed, curiosity got the better of me. I looked up the app on my own phone, and my stomach turned when I realized what it actually was. It wasn't a calculator at all, it was one of those hidden photo and video vaults that disguise themselves as something harmless. With the right passcode, you could unlock whatever someone wanted to keep private. I felt sick. And while I'm not proud of what I did, when I was certain he was sound asleep, I took his phone into the bathroom and started digging. I checked his texts and social media first, nothing. Finally, I tried the calculator. His passcode wasn't hard to crack, it was the year our son was born. Once it opened, my worst fears came alive. Inside were months of cheating, at least 7 by the look of it. Screenshots of flirty texts, nudes from another woman, and videos that made me want to throw up. From the conversations, I guessed she was a coworker. The images weren't of them out in public like a couple, they were strictly sexual. Against every instinct, I forced myself to look through them, needing proof, needing to know. Then I stumbled across a video that nearly broke me. He works night shifts, and lately the weather's been cold, especially after dark. In that video, they were in our car, fooling around. She was straddling him in the passenger seat. At one point she complained she was cold, and do you know what he did? That man reached into the back seat and pulled out our toddler son's blanket, our baby's blanket, and wrapped it around her. I started shaking so hard I could barely breathe. That crossed a line in my head I didn't even know existed. I couldn't watch another second. Somehow, I managed to stay calm enough to collect the evidence, put his phone back, and retreat into my son's room for the night. By morning, I was holding myself together with sheer willpower. Every bone in my body wanted to scream at him, but I knew I needed to be smart. I wanted to hit him where it hurt most. So instead of confronting him, I called a divorce lawyer. I needed a way out, and I wanted to make sure I had everything in place before he could manipulate me again. The next step was reaching out to his parents. I told them what their son had done. For context, my mother-in-law had lived through cheating herself. Her first husband, my husband's biological dad, cheated on her before he eventually died of cancer. Years later, she married Sean, the man who helped raise my husband since he was just a little boy. I never thought I'd be the one to sit across from them and tell them their son was doing the same thing his own father once did. When I walked into their house, the tension was thick even though they didn't know why I was there yet. They greeted me warmly, smiling, completely unaware of the storm I was about to drop on them. I took a deep breath, sat down, and said what I had to say, that their son was being unfaithful. The look on their faces was haunting. His mom's eyes went wide, his stepdad's expression shifted from welcoming to tight disbelief. I laid out everything, the screenshots, the texts, the pictures. Every word I spoke felt like ripping open a wound. His mom listened closely, her eyes flicking to her husband now and then like she was praying he'd tell her it wasn't true. But the proof was right there. Eventually, she found her voice. Anger and sadness tangled together as she asked me how long it had been going on. I told her the timeline, and she shook her head in disbelief, disappointment etched in every line of her face. His stepdad didn't even try to hide how rattled he was. Normally calm, he just sat there speechless, his silence saying more than words could. Finally, his mom leaned forward. Her voice trembled, but her words carried weight. "You can't let him get away with this," she said. "It's not fair to you, and it's not fair to our family. He has a son now, and still, he chose to throw everything away. He needs to face the consequences." Her words hung heavy in the room, pressing down on me, urging me to fight back against the betrayal I had just uncovered. Then his mom suggested something I never saw coming. She leaned in and said, "What if we expose his affair at my 50th birthday party?" At first, I thought I misheard her. The idea of revealing everything in front of family and friends sounded extreme, almost cruel, but she kept going. She explained that sometimes the truth needs to be put out there, where no one can deny it or sweep it under the rug. I sat there stunned, torn between shock and intrigue. The thought of humiliating him in such a public way was terrifying, yet part of me couldn't ignore the sense of power behind it. For once, he wouldn't be able to lie his way out or gaslight me into thinking I imagined everything. After sitting with the idea for a moment, I finally exhaled and said, "All right, let's do it. If this is what it takes to make him face reality, then I'm in." She nodded firmly, promising me they'd stand beside me the whole way. "He can't keep hurting you like this," she assured me. What I didn't realize then was how that one suggestion would set off a chain of events that none of us could stop, a storm that would break wide open at her birthday celebration. In the days leading up to the party, I poured myself into planning. I put together a PowerPoint presentation meant to lay out the evidence of his affair, screenshots, messages, photos, all of it. But as I worked, I had a change of heart. Instead of building something fueled entirely by rage and betrayal, I decided to layer in pieces of our past too, the happy memories, the moments that once made me proud to be his wife. I thought it would hit harder that way, showing not only how much we once had, but also how much he chose to destroy. I sent the final version to his parents so they could handle it during the party. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, I was busy working with my divorce lawyer. The plan was bold. While his mother exposed his affair to the family, I would serve him the divorce papers right there in the middle of it all. Emotional devastation followed by legal consequences. It was the kind of 1-2 punch I hoped would finally make him realize how badly he had ruined everything. When the party arrived, the atmosphere was exactly what you'd expect: a room full of laughter, chatter, clinking glasses, and birthday cheer. People had no idea a bomb was about to drop. My mother-in-law, radiant as the hostess, stood up from her seat with a smile that could light up the whole room. She began her speech with gratitude, reflecting on her journey through 50 years of life, the highs, the lows, the battles she'd fought. Everyone listened, touched by her words, and the room was full of warmth and nostalgia. Then she pivoted. Her eyes landed on my husband, and with that proud mother gleam, she started talking about him. She spoke about his accomplishments, the man he'd become, and, this part stung, the wonderful woman he had chosen to share his life with. People nodded and smiled, buying into the illusion of a perfect family, believing the image we had tried so hard to project. But her voice shifted ever so slightly, and I felt the air change. "Life isn't always as simple as we'd like it to be," she said, her expression tightening with a mixture of disappointment and resolve. The room went silent, the unease rippling through the crowd. It pains me to say this, but I've recently learned something about my son that left me deeply disappointed. The hush that followed was almost unbearable. Then, with perfect composure, she queued up the presentation. "To truly understand what I'm talking about," she continued, "you need to see it for yourselves." The screen lit up. One by one, the messages, the photos, the evidence of his affair appeared for everyone to see. Gasps filled the room, whispers darted through the crowd like wildfire, and the celebratory atmosphere shattered into stunned silence. My husband's cool facade cracked instantly, his eyes widened, sweat beaded at his temple, and his usual smirk was gone. But his mother wasn't done. Standing tall, her voice didn't waver as she said, "I never thought I'd live to see the day my own son would follow in the footsteps of his biological father, the man who once betrayed me." The pain in her words cut through the air, and the weight of her disappointment hung heavy over the entire room. And then, with steel in her tone, she shifted again. "This isn't just about exposing the truth," she declared. "Turning 50 has made me reevaluate a lot of things in my own life. And there's something else I need to say." The attention in the room shifted back to my mother-in-law as she stood her ground. Her voice was steady, firm, and carried the kind of authority that only comes from lived pain. She said, "I've decided it's time to make some changes, starting with my will." The air grew heavy. Guests looked at one another, unsure what to expect. Then she delivered the blow. "As of today, I've updated my will. My son will no longer be included in it." Gasps rippled through the room, louder even than the shock of the affair. My husband's face twisted, disbelief giving way to panic, then to something between hurt and anger. His mother's tone didn't waver. "Everything will go to our grandson." The weight of her words settled over everyone like a storm cloud. The whispers, the sideways glances, it was all sinking in. Then his stepdad, who had been silent until now, stepped forward with a voice like steel. "I agree with her decision," he said. "Even my assets will be going to our grandson, not you." The room, already tense, now felt like a courtroom where the verdict had just been delivered. My husband looked crushed, grappling not only with the humiliation of being exposed but now the financial and emotional rejection of his own parents. That's when I stepped forward. My heart was pounding, but I kept my hands steady as I held out the divorce papers. All eyes turned toward us. He looked like a deer caught in headlights. His composure broke completely. "I can explain, please, just hear me out," he stammered, desperation dripping from every word. His voice shook, his eyes wild with panic, like he was drowning and reaching for anything to hold on to. But I couldn't help it, I laughed, bitter and broken. "Explain? After all the lies, after all the betrayal?" My voice shook with a mix of rage and grief. "This was your last chance, and you threw it away." His excuses hit deaf ears. I pushed the papers into his hands, sealing the moment. As I walked away, I felt a strange calm settle over me. My in-laws had just taught him the lesson he refused to learn from me: choices have consequences. Update 1. After that unforgettable birthday reveal, I knew I couldn't stay another day in that toxic house. With the help of my parents and brothers, I packed my bags and moved out. My ex must have realized how serious it was because he tried one last desperate plea as I was leaving. His charm was gone, replaced by regret and panic. He begged me to give him another chance, promising to change, trying to explain what couldn't be explained. This time, I stood my ground. I told him the pain he caused wasn't something I could just forget. He wouldn't let up, though, calling and messaging me, even reaching out to my parents. My older brother finally stepped in, delivering a firm warning for him to back off. We blocked him everywhere. The only place I'd see him again would be in court. Update 2. A few weeks later, my mother-in-law called me with more news. Apparently, my ex showed up at her house unannounced, desperate to claw his way back into her good graces and her will. It didn't go well. He argued, begged, got heated, and when he wouldn't leave, they threatened to call the police. That finally made him back down, but it left everyone rattled. It was becoming clear he wasn't just desperate, he was unraveling. Update 3. 7 months passed, and the divorce dragged on. It wasn't easy, he fought dirty at first, saying terrible things and trying to twist the story. But the mountain of evidence I had, messages, screenshots, photos, videos, was undeniable. Eventually, he and his lawyers stopped playing games. Through it all, I focused on my son. He became my anchor, the one thing keeping me steady. My mother-in-law also became my rock. Despite everything, she stood by me like family, helping care for my son, showing him love, and reminding me I wasn't alone. She wasn't just my ex's mom anymore, she was my ally, and she made sure both me and her grandson felt safe and supported. Update 4. Just when I thought the legal battle would drag on forever, something unexpected happened. My lawyer told me my ex agreed to all my demands, child support included. Why? Because he had met someone new and wanted the divorce finalized quickly. Honestly, I didn't care why. All I wanted was freedom, and now I finally had it. During one of our last court meetings, he actually approached me to apologize. He said he'd started therapy, that he regretted everything, and that he didn't want our son growing up hating him. He asked me to forgive him someday so we could be good co-parents. I listened, nodded, wished him luck, and walked away. Whether he meant it or not didn't matter to me anymore. I wasn't holding on to his mess anymore. Now that the divorce is final, I feel lighter than I have in years. No more walking on eggshells, no more sleepless nights wondering if I was being lied to. Just peace. Just freedom. Next week, my ex-mother-in-law invited me and my family out to lunch to celebrate my divorce. She still calls me part of her family, still loves me and my son, and that means more than I can say. Moving forward, my only goal is to raise my son in a loving, healthy environment so he grows into a better man than his father ever was.